Well, now it's time to analyze the operational situation on the Lyman front. The enemy continues its military terror here as well. On the Lyman front, the invading army carried out 13 attacks on Ukrainian positions near the settlements of Nadezhda, Novaya, Yekaterinovka, Grekovka, Zelenaya Dolina, Torske, Belogorovka, and Grigorievka throughout the day. One of them is still ongoing. Now let's talk about foreign volunteers who are fighting on Ukraine's side against Russian terrorists. Let's focus on the citizens of Colombia, a seemingly distant country, 11,000 kilometers from Ukraine, mind you. But in reality, there is something that unites Ukrainians and Colombians. Local soldiers in their homeland, in South America, fought against the communist guerrillas of the FARC group, which Moscow supported for decades. This is the signature Kremlin style. The motivation of Colombian soldiers in the war against the Russian army is the subject of the next report by TSN correspondent Andriy Saplienko.
In the Kharkiv region, the shortage of infantry is compensated by foreign volunteers. One of the most organized and numerous groups of foreigners in the Ukrainian army are citizens of Colombia. Typically, Colombians signing a contract in Ukraine have combat experience. In their homeland, they fought against the communist guerrillas of the FARC group, which Moscow supported for decades. Therefore, it's not just money that motivates Colombians to wear the Ukrainian uniform.
I am a participant in combat actions against FARC. We participated in the operation to eliminate the FARC commander. We have an ongoing internal conflict that is funded by Russia.
Is there evidence that Russia funded FARC?
Yes. Military intelligence reports have proven that Russia sends weapons, sends and trains militants. Russia has always waged a dirty war and taught the military to plant anti-personnel mines. The Russians violate international humanitarian law.
In the Katia Brigade, which holds the Kharkiv direction, Colombians are considered effective infantry. Therefore, the first national Colombian unit in the defense forces was created here.
This is not just a group of people who were accepted into the unit and went on to perform tasks. These are also commanders, Ukrainian commanders, who are proficient in the relevant language. It's a very large team that works around this 24/7.
The unit already has its own traditions, its own distinctions, and its own name, Guajiro.
They chose the name themselves, which sounds like Guajiro. This is in honor of the first soldier from their unit who was killed.
The official flag of the unit bears the motto, loyalty, dignity, and sacrifice.
This was very valuable to them.
The chief sergeant of the Guajiro unit believes that his fighters are much better infantrymen than the Russians. But to survive on the battlefield, that's not enough.
The Russian infantry is completely incompetent. We also see that they are inexperienced. Their strength lies only in drones and artillery. But the truth is that with every task we undertake, we are always learning. We already know how to counter drones and can operate in conditions of technological warfare.
However, it must be acknowledged that Russia recruits foreigners into the occupation army in significantly larger numbers than Ukraine can afford. Moreover, regular troops of Putin's ally Kim Jong-un are fighting on Russia's side, and Putin's army is conducting assault operations across almost the entire front.
And now we move to the Kramatorsk and Toretsk directions of the front. The enemy is becoming more ferocious here as well. In the Kramatorsk direction, the occupiers twice attempted to advance on Ukrainian positions near Chasiv Yar and Andriivka. One battle is still ongoing. In the Toretsk direction, 4 battles have concluded. However, 2 enemy assault operations are still continuing. The enemy is trying to advance near Ozaryanivka and Toretsk. There is no stable front line, and battles are taking place in almost every building. The city of Toretsk has been at the center of hellish battles for 9 months and is still partially under the control of the Ukrainian army. Throughout the entire defense, our forces have eliminated about 20,000 Russians there. The difficulty, the warriors say, is that the front line can even run through a single high-rise building. This is when one entrance is controlled by the enemy and the other is already held by our defenders. TSN special correspondent Yulia Kirienko visited the warriors of the 100th Brigade, who are defending the city. Exclusive material is coming up for your attention.
Toretsk is a small town surrounded by slag heaps, devastated and scorched by war. 9 months of fighting for the city. That's how long Bakhmut once held out. Toretsk still stands to this day. In its residential areas during this time, the warriors of the Volyn 100th Brigade, along with adjacent units, have eliminated about 20,000 Russians. And now the fighters are repelling another assault by the occupiers. The Ukrainian-made Bodana cannon is in operation. In Toretsk, there is an intense assault, so today there's plenty of work for the Bodana. The third shot is already being prepared for such a long-range weapon. Therefore, our troops are doing everything possible to prevent the Russians from securing the positions they are trying to reclaim. The cannon fires a shell and the artillerymen lift another one. They do it together. The work is physically demanding.
Not heavier than a sack of flour. 40 kilograms more or less.
The commander transmits the coordinates over the radio. These are the residential areas of Toretsk, or rather, what remains of them. Between those ruins, Russian infantry is moving. The fighters are defending ours. They are shooting again. The Bodana gun is securely entrenched in the ground. Its use is unusual, say the artillerymen. This is wheeled equipment, and previously the fighters would simply drive it to the firing point from the rear. Now they are forced to park it in a caponiero and settle themselves near it in the ground, because the road to the front line is too dangerous.
They especially started hunting us, especially when 3 of their D-20s were destroyed.
But that's not all that the gunners destroyed with their Bodana. This particular gun helped to liberate Snake Island, and artilleryman Yuri, who was involved, says it was the first time he fired from the sea at enemies.
I'm sailing on a barge.
We sailed on a barge, loaded up. On the first day we arrived, I think we launched a few. We arrived, they pulled us onto this barge, and already I think 48 were launched. Directly at the island. Well, we hit something there. I think a pantsir. And something else was destroyed. I don't remember very well anymore. This is one video that I have.
Occupiers who are committing atrocities on Snake Island.
In these shots, the firing of the Bodana and Yuri's work towards Snake Island are captured. The warriors still can't believe that the operation turned out to be so important that it went down in history.
We had 2 ships covering us, and there were more on the sides. We went in and moved forward. Well, guys, we made it in.
Later, Yuri had a mission in the Belgorod region, and now he is covering our infantry near Toretsk. And every shot from the Bodna saves the lives of his comrades.
And now we move to the blazing Pokrovsky front line. Let's be honest, Wasesits, this is another sacred target for Putin and his pack. Accordingly, the situation here is extremely tense. In the Pokrovsky direction, Russian invaders made 19 attempts to push our defenders from their positions in the areas of the settlements of Sukaya Balka, Yelizavetovka, Lisovka, Kotlino, Udachne, Kotlyarivka, Bodanivka, and Andriivka. The defense forces are holding the line and have already repelled 16 enemy attacks. 3 clashes are still ongoing. Yes, the Russians are advancing in the Donbas. The main goal of the enemy here is clear: to capture the urban agglomeration of Kramatorsk, or at least part of it, the city of Kostiantynivka. But you know, even this task seems unrealistic. In order to encircle Konstaka, as the city's defenders call it, the enemy first needs to occupy Chasiv Yar and Toretsk. But in both settlements, the Russians have been stuck for several months, and it's all thanks to the Ukrainian heroes. Details in the exclusive report from the Frontline by TSN military correspondent Andriy Tsaplienko.
The 2S7 legendary. Pion is the largest caliber of Ukrainian barrel artillery. Shells weighing about 100 kilograms almost became a problem for the Ukrainian army, but Ukraine managed to solve the issue of their shortage. However, Russia did not. Apparently, that's why Putin is asking Kim Jong-un for his large-caliber Koksan installations. The Pions have become one of the advantages of the Ukrainian forces.
This is the largest caliber, and it is very important. Because Ukraine does not have such a huge number of missiles, a large number of targets have to be hit with large caliber shells.
When the massive, powerful giant gun fires, you can feel the ground vibrating under your feet.
You aim, notify everyone that there will be a shot, and then you fire.
At the beginning of the war, these peonies of the 43rd Brigade stopped the advance of enemy columns on the capital. 3 years later, the old 8-inch gun remains relevant. It dismantles well-protected Russian fortifications, essentially performing the function of cabs, which the Ukrainian army critically lacks. How many shells can you load in a day?
A lot? Let them bring more. We will work, so to speak, until we drop. 50, 40. Probably the most was somewhere up to 100. 50, 40. The most probably was somewhere up to 100.
Wow. They won't let you fall. There is always a medic at the Pion position.
I always go out with the guys to the firing line. God forbid something hits, I provide first pre-medical aid.
Despite all efforts and tremendous losses, unfortunately, Russia cannot achieve significant advancement on the front. As a result, Russian terrorists strike peaceful cities, while the world harbors illusions about appeasing the Kremlin killer.
Well, now it's time to analyze the situation on the Huliaipol and Orikhiv directions of the front. Russian world continues to destroy, kill, and maim here as well. In the Huliaipol direction, the enemy carried out airstrikes with unguided rockets on Huliaipol and Zhelezhnodorozhne. In the Orikhiv direction, our defenders repelled 3 enemy assaults by Purta in the areas of the settlements of Stepne and Lobkove and Orkaye Malipo Sherbaki. 1 person was killed, and 6 others were injured as a result of the Russian attack on the Zhitomir district. The fact is that an enemy drone hit an ordinary apartment building. 5 more people were injured, among them a child born in 2011. The child has been hospitalized. According to preliminary data, at least 5 neighboring houses were damaged. All the details in the next report by TSN correspondent Valentina Dobrota.
The Russian drone clipped trees on its path and fell between apartment buildings. The blast wave blew out windows and doors, and a store on the ground floor caught fire. At that moment, 74-year-old Halina was passing by the store. After suffering a stroke, the woman has poor hearing and didn't even know about the air raid alert.
I didn't understand what happened at all when it exploded. I fell and there was a fire in that store. The windows blew out and it fell on me. I was bleeding from my head and legs.
Halina was admitted to the hospital in serious condition, impaired consciousness, open cranial injury, concussion, and debris all over her body. A Russian drone arrived at these houses by evening.
It kept spinning and then suddenly started descending. And explosions. Everything is falling. Everyone is screaming.
People were just coming home. Well, I'll give you a ride now. Yuri was just entering his apartment. There were glass shards in the walls, plaster crumbled, interior doors flew out, and 2 walls were completely burned out. His daughter and wife wouldn't have had any chance if they hadn't run to the shelter when the alarm was announced.
We respond to alarms, we go out, and I had just come from work, called them and told them to go to the shelter. We weren't at home here, we were in the neighboring one.
When the apartment was already on fire, the man rushed through the smoke to save the cat and documents.
I ran in, grabbed him, and he survived.
In the apartment, opposite Yuri's lived a large and less mobile family.
I'm at work in Kyiv. My daughter with her bedridden mother and bedridden child were here for a year and a half. Yes, we pulled them out.
Lezia's entire family found refuge with relatives, and the woman came home to clean up the broken glass in the apartment. They
miraculously survived. I don't know how it happened. Some kind of miracle. It's all so close. I don't cry anymore.
Lezia's bedridden mother, as well as the wounded in the damaged apartments, were the first to be rescued by local residents even before the emergency services arrived.
Many people helped. Many ran around asking if there were any injured. They carried out elderly people. One grandmother was brought here to the bench. She was very badly injured. A girl ran out, the one born in 2011.
The girl was all cut up by debris and also had a penetrating injury to her right eye. After being examined by Zhitomir doctors, the child was urgently transported to Kyiv.
Besides the eye, her face was affected. She had many shrapnel wounds on her face, neck and hands. Plus there were metal fragments which we also removed in the operating room. Both metal and glass.
At night, 3 teams of surgeons tried to save the girl's vision. Her condition is now satisfactory, but she will no longer be able to see with her right eye.
The extent of the injury is significant. The extent of the injuries is significant. There is a significant loss of the eyeball's contents, and structures which, unfortunately, are very difficult to restore. This morning, the girl could see light. Only light.
In addition to the people, more than 100 apartments and several high-rise buildings were damaged. A special commission has already been created to determine the extent of the damage for compensation.
The Shabbat is not closed. And to wash.
The consequences of the destruction were dealt with by midnight. Rescuers also set up heating points. There, psychological assistance was provided, and in the morning, utility workers and apartment owners began boarding up windows.
That's all for today. But very soon on the Front News program, there will be new, unique materials from our journalists in the hottest spots of the war, obtained so that you know the truth. This was Vladimir Timoshenko with you. Take care of yourself and your loved ones.